Welcome back to the Real Games Cast. We're going to move on to topic number 3 for this week. And this is my topic. And guys, I want to talk about games that had potential. They got sequels that really cashed in on the potential. So what I'm talking about is things like Assassin's Creed is going to be my first example, where the first game was not that great, probably solid 6 or 7 out of 10. But then Assassin's Creed 2 came out, and you saw how much potential the series really had. Assassin's Creed 2 being one of the best games ever made.
Yes.
My other example is going to be Mass Effect. The first one came out. The first one was good, but not great. And then Mass Effect 2 comes out, and again, one of the best games ever made. So, what are some games that you guys think the original showed the promise, but then the sequel really gave you that?
The Batman Arkham Asylum was a great game. I'd say it was a 9 out of 10 because it was just it delved perfectly into the Batman lore. But then Batman Arkham City took the mechanics of Batman Arkham Asylum, blew them up into an open world, and then gave you all the freedom.
Right.
And got a perfect. It was like a 10 out of 10 for me. So I thought that, and then of course your Assassin's Creed and the Mass Effects were really good too.
I've got 2 examples, but it doesn't really start like after the first game. Kind of takes a couple of games into the series.
Okay.
The first one is, well, I can't go a week without talking about it. The Elder Scrolls. They had, I think, Morrowind was the 3rd game of the series. I think they actually had 3 games before that. I think they had.
Morrowind was the first one to come to console, right?
Yes. Yeah. So really, it's kind of the first game of the series for most people.
Sort of.
Yeah. But not technically, so I'm going to use that as my example. And then another one is Call of Duty.
Yeah.
Call of Duty 1, 2, and 3. They were good games. But Call of Duty 4 was what really picked that franchise up.
Revolutionary.
Yeah.
What made Oblivion or Skyrim that much better than the original Elder Scrolls games?
Well,
like
they looked and played better.
Okay.
Bethesda kind of started something different with those games. When I said that it was kind of basically the start of the series, it really was kind of the start of the series. Kind of like Fallout 2. The first and second Fallout were kind of like Grand Theft Auto as well. Kind of where it was so old, it played like kind of like a platformer. They couldn't really do what they wanted to. But then once the technology got better, Grand Theft Auto 3 I think was the first one.
Like how Grand Theft Auto 1 and 2, you had the top-down view that was all weird. Then in 3, they finally had the technology to create this open world where you're behind a character in third person and you get to play the game.
Another good one would be the Resident Evil series, where the original Resident Evil, you had these big clunky tank controls, and basically that kind of pretty much carried all the way up until Resident Evil 3.
Right.
But then Resident Evil 4 was
amazing.
It revolutionized gaming because it introduced this over-the-shoulder third-person perspective, which now basically every game has if it's not a first-person shooter. So it did that. You actually felt scared while you played it, and it brought in new enemy types. It changed pretty much gaming as we know today. If it wasn't for Resident Evil 4, we may not have had a Gears of War series. So
another one for me is Uncharted.
Yes.
The first Uncharted game was a good, fun platformer, but then Uncharted 2 was,
it was just.
It's mind-blowingly good.
Now, what about games that?
Which Uncharted 2 also, Naughty Dog had time to learn the PS3 system.
Yes, the first one was almost a launch title.
Yeah.
It came out shortly after the PS3 did. And out of the games you've mentioned, what was it about the sequel that moved them forward so much? For me, in Mass Effect, for example, they introduced the thermal clips where you didn't have infinite ammo all the time. It became a more cover-based shooter.
Yeah.
Instead of just, the gunplay in the original Mass Effect is just kind of there. It's not very good.
Yeah.
They toned down the RPG elements. Then they brought them back in Mass Effect 3, but kind of in the middle. Mass Effect 3, I felt really nailed it in the sense of gameplay, and the RPG stuff into one.
Yeah.
Just the story in 2 is so much better than 3, I feel.
Well, have you noticed that seems to be kind of BioWare's thing. Their first one is kind of really lacking on gameplay but heavy on story.
Mm-hmm.
The second one goes all for gameplay but lacks story. And the third one combines them. Dragon Age.
Yep.
Basically the medieval counterpart of Mass Effect.
Yep.
The first one was all about dialogue, open world, but combat played as
horrible.
You pressed a button and you watched your guy attack.
Yeah.
I couldn't get in. I didn't play more than 30 minutes because I couldn't do it.
I played that game for like 12 hours, and I got to a point where I was just like, I don't know what's going on or what's happening, and I'm just done.
And then the second game, great. It did better on combat. It was more made for consoles.
Yeah.
So you got to sit there and press the button while your guy attacked. You had your hotkeys, but then you were just confined to this same place. And I played that for 10 hours and got bored because I was like, if I run into this cave one more time.
Right.
But then I haven't played Dragon Age Inquisition.
I have. I played Dragon Age Inquisition for about 250 hours. It's a really good video game. It's a really good. I played it over break. Give me a break. Either way, it's a really good video game. It's a damn good game. The top-down view in it, where you can plan your attacks out, is really handy.
Yeah.
Which is the perfect combination of the pretty much the action from Dragon Age 2, the combat, while bringing in the tactical from the first, and then putting in the exploration of the first.
Right.
And with your Mass Effect, I didn't get to play Mass Effect 1 because I didn't have an Xbox 360, and I never played it on PS3. But Mass Effect 1, I watched a lot of gameplay. Gameplay was really lacking, but the story was great.
Yeah.
Then the second one, story was still great, but they definitely toned down RPG elements, like you said, built up the combat. And the third one, perfect blend. I feel like BioWare's thing is their third game, their second sequel is usually their best.
I feel like with Dragon Age, Dragon Age Inquisition is better than any Elder Scrolls game.
Blasphemy.
That Bethesda's ever pumped out. It's so much better than those games.
I'm done with this topic.
Because as I was playing Dragon Age, I always had a sense that I was accomplishing something. I was moving forward toward the end. I could play Elder Scrolls for 3 days and feel like I haven't done jack crap.
Do you hear something, Sheila?
I think it's the snow outside.
You know I'm right. That's the issue here. If Elder Scrolls knew better how to reward the player for advancing, then I would play that.
I get a cool sword. That's what I get.
I get story development from BioWare and Dragon Age. That's what I want.
Would you rather have a sword that can kill stuff, or find out a new little tiny tidbit about the story?
New little tiny tidbit about the story.
I
don't play these games for 600 hours of gameplay. I play these games for a fun, interactive story.
I was the leader of the companions in the College of Winterhold, the Thieves Guild,
and the Dark Brotherhood.
You can play that game you can play Skyrim for like 6 hours and be the head of every guild.
And beware any rat that stood in my way.
Skyrim is not that good of a game.
Yes, it is.
Hush.
No, it's not.
Tell that to its Game of the Year awards.
Skyrim is at best a 7 out of 10.
Oh no! Take that back.
I'm done with this.
It is a 7 out of 10.
Well, guys, thanks for listening to the show.
It is a 7 out of 10 based on decent combat. It has a terrible story. Its dragon stuff is ridiculous. The dragons are so much better in Dragon Age.
We're boycotting this this segment, right? Okay.
You're just mad because you know I'm right.
No.
Witcher 3 is going to be better than Skyrim.
Nope.
Skyrim has nostalgia.
Nostalgia?
Nostalgia.
There you go. Good try.
If you don't know how to say a word, don't say it.
Tristan Schuller and the plethora of pterodactyls.
It turns out different when I type it on paper to when I say it. It usually takes me 1 or 2 times.
But back onto the topic. Mass Effect is better than frickin' Skyrim. Yeah.
Hush.
Mass Effect 2 and 3 are both superior video games to any of the Elder Scrolls series.
Why did The Walking Dead beat up Mass Effect 3 for Game of the Year?
Ooh.
Because The Walking Dead was a really good game.
Exactly.
What beat out
Nothing
Mass
beat out
Effect 2?
Skyrim.
What beat out Mass Effect 2? Nothing. Because it's the best video game that's ever been made.
What beat out Skyrim? Nothing.
Well, something should have.
Batman Arkham City.
Because it's insanely overrated.
I thought Batman Arkham City should have won that year.
Yeah, it was the best game made that year. Skyrim wasn't.
Skyrim is a great game.
It's not that special.
It may not be a very story-based game, but Skyrim is more about the exploration and putting yourself into that person's shoes. Who can go outside in that snow right now and shirtless and feel like if you can walk around there and breathe fire out of your mouth?
But
you can't. You can't. But you can with Skyrim.
Here's the issue with Skyrim. You actually just made it very clear to me. Because you said, put yourself in that character's shoes. I can't do that because I get no connection to my character because I feel nothing out of the story what's happening to them. If I'm not connected to the character, I can't sink myself into them. When I play Mass Effect and I'm Commander Shepard and I care what's happening to him, then I can put myself in his shoes, and I can't do that in the Elder Scrolls. I tried it in Oblivion. That game was a joke. It was horrible. I played it for 11 hours, and I felt like I didn't do anything but run over mountains. Skyrim, I tried to play Skyrim. I hated it. It was horrible.
It was not.
You just run and run and run, and then you see a village and kill a bunch of people, and then you run and run and run.
No.
Yes!
No, I love it. She was just like, no.
That is what you do in that game. It's not that good.
I became a werewolf.
Well, that's just fan-frickin-tastic.
And you became a vampire.
So you became Edward
yeah,
Cullen? I hope you feel good about that.
Oh, no, I was a blood drinker.
Oh, using one of the
I became
one of
the
the Vampire Diaries ones?
I became the vampire to do the different sides. Like, oh, what's cooler, vampire or werewolf?
I hated vampirism on that game.
Yeah, vampirism sucks. But I feel like we're getting really off topic because now we're just debating the credibility of Skyrim's awesomeness.
That it sucks.
It does not.
But anyway, was Fallout? Did you play Fallout 2?
No,
but I know
I've seen videos of it.
So from 2 to 3, I assume was a pretty substantial leap forward.
Yeah, 2 was on the PC and it was a top-down view too, I believe. Number 3 definitely changed it. But then, what about games that you have the ones that improve on their sequels? What about the ones that
got worse?
Yeah,
Dead Space.
Yeah, Dead Space, the original, fantastic game. Love the horror. Now, don't get me wrong, Dead Space 2 and Dead Space 3 are great games, but they are not great horror games. They are more action.
God of War, another one. Ascension was not nearly as good as the
God of War 3, no.
The Walking Dead Season 2, so what I've played of it so far has not been as good as the first season.
That season gets up much better as you go along.
Okay.
Bioshock 2 compared to Bioshock.
Oh, God, yeah. That was a huge down. But then they kind of redeemed themselves with Infinite. Infinite was fantastic. Yeah. Assassin's Creed.
Yeah,
I brought up Assassin's Creed as something that got it tremendously better. It also, it kind of took a step back with Brotherhood.
Yeah.
As good as the story was, the gameplay was not nearly as defined.
Yeah,
but then it got better with Revelations, and then it got kind of worse with Assassin's Creed 3. But then it got a big plus from me with Black Flag, and then the 2 this year. I played both. I played Unity and Rogue. And Unity, despite all the brokenness at first, was a fun game. Rogue was fun. I really enjoyed Rogue. Rogue had a fantastic story, but man, it's got some bugs in it that are just atrocious.
Yeah.
And the character's really hard to control because I got used to Assassin's Creed Unity and how the game controls, and then I had to go back to the old combat because they redone the combat and everything. So I had to go back to the old combat system, the old climbing system, and it's just God.
Now, I'll give you a good example. Sequels that did worse because they were switched to a different developer. Arkham City to Arkham Origins.
Yeah.
Rocksteady didn't develop
Arkham Origins.
Arkham Origins was a great game, but it was nothing compared to Arkham City.
My biggest problem with Arkham Origins is that they finally took the game out into Gotham, and it was an empty world.
Yeah.
They centered it around Christmas and said everybody's at home for Christmas, blah blah blah.
But still, there's people doing last minute Christmas shopping,
and that game felt like such an empty world.
I like how they're going to explain it in Arkham Knight though about how they've evacuated the city.
Yeah. Now that makes a lot more sense than just saying, oh, it's Christmas, everybody's home.
Yeah. And then plus Arkham Origins, the only other thing I can think of that compares to with that story twist, because in Arkham Origins the big premise was that, hey, the 8 assassins, you are taking them down.
Right.
And then it all just became, spoiler alert, the Joker again.
It's the Joker!
Which, I love the Joker in that game, but I was like, he's been the main villain of the past
of all of
2
them.
games. I was like, give me something different.
Well, luckily in Arkham Knight we won't have to worry about that because he's dead.
Spoiler!
No.
But the only thing, like I said, I can compare it to would be in Iron Man 3, where...
And guys, since Schuler said Iron Man 3, we're going to go ahead and start wrapping up the show.
The Mandarin's not the Mandarin!
I hate you.
The Mandarin
Before
is a
I go,
lie.
I'd like to point something out.
The Mandarin is a lie.
At the Spike Video Game Awards 2010, there was a game that beat Mass Effect 2 for Game of the Year.
Oh, God. What was it?
Can you guess?
No.
Red Dead Redemption.
Woo! And Jordan's got an erection.
I just love proving you wrong.
Anyway, we're going to start wrapping the show up. Guys, thanks for listening to episode 3 of the Real Games Cast. Again, I'm your host. What?
Ask them about the 4th topic. If they're going to continue to do it. Because I don't know if anybody sent us anything.
Yeah, they didn't.
Okay.
Guys, we do want to introduce a 4th topic to the show, and we want to do it on something you want us to talk about. So tweet at us, send us a message on Facebook, send us an email, leave a comment on our website, tell us anything that you want to hear us talk about. We're going to try to introduce a 4th topic to the show as soon as we start getting topics sent in. Again, I'm your host, Mitch Smith, alongside the most majestic name in the business, Jordan Augustus Dean, and the plethora of pterodactyls, Tristan Schuler. And his random weird noises. Again, this has been episode 4.
Yep.
This has been episode 4 of the Real Games Cast. If you like what we're doing, go tweet us at Real Games Cast. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/RealGamesCast. Support us on Patreon, patreon.com/RealGames. And finally, visit our website, realgames.org, for all of our written stuff. Thanks for tuning in this week, and we can't wait to talk to you guys next week. We are out.